Back aboard the Conclave's flagship, Ambassador Xyril faced the judgment of his peers via quantum communication link. The ship's central chamber pulsed with subtle bioluminescence, reflecting the collective anxiety of the delegation. This outcome was unanticipated. Xyril admitted, his translucent appendages now fully trembling. I followed all established first contact protocols. The gifts were appropriately calibrated to human technological understanding. The diplomatic overtures precisely matched their cultural expectations. Supreme Counselor Sortal's holographic presence dominated the chamber, his crystalline features refracting light in patterns that conveyed deep concern. You claim to have made no errors, yet we face an unprecedented rejection. Explain. Xyril activated the ship's memory core, projecting scenes from the 2-week negotiation period. Earth's leaders asking increasingly precise questions about conclave governance structures. Scientists methodically testing each technological gift, not just for function, but for underlying principles. Military advisors quietly calculating power differentials between Earth and various conclave member worlds. They were evaluating us, observed Subdirector Neriva, the delegation's strategic analyst, not as potential benefactors, but as potential threats. Impossible, countered Scientific Overseer Peldor. Our psychometric influence fields were calibrated to induce trust and gratitude. No species has ever resisted these subtle manipulations. Xyril replayed Secretary General Okafor's final address. The human stood with perfect composure, her dark eyes revealing nothing as she delivered humanity's carefully worded rejection. We seek friendship, not adoption. Partnership, not submission. Your generosity honors us, but we must walk our own path among the stars. Their neural architecture demonstrates unusual resistance to standard compliance measures. Admitted Chief Xenobiologist Trell. Our preliminary scans detected autonomous counter-responses to external influence attempts. It appears their brains instinctively recognize and reject patterns designed to guide thought processes. Silence fell across the chamber as the implications sank in. For 50 millennia, the Conclave had integrated new species through a precise combination of technological gifts, cultural exchange, and imperceptible influence. The process had never failed. The humans have established their own orbital defense grid since our arrival, reported Security Commander Vazen. They're adapting elements of our scanning technology into their systems. Their information networks are analyzing every word, every gesture from our delegation with unprecedented thoroughness. Sortal's holographic form shifted colors, indicating a formal decision. We must recalibrate our approach. I will personally lead the next delegation. We will offer more, much more. Humans must be integrated into the conclave before they develop further. As the meeting concluded, Junior Cultural Analyst Mira remained behind, reviewing footage of human children playing in a park near the diplomatic compound. Unlike the carefully orchestrated recreation of conclave younglings, these small humans invented their own games, changed rules mid-play, argued passionately, then reconciled with startling speed. They're beautiful, Mira whispered to herself. So chaotic. So free. Security Commander Vazen overheard her comment. Freedom is inefficient and dangerous, he replied automatically. The conclave brings order and progress. But as he studied the playing children, something unfamiliar flickered across his features. A moment of doubt that would have been instantly corrected in any properly integrated conclave species. President Chen's diplomatic team escorted Sortal back to his shuttle, maintaining respectful composure despite the Supreme Counselor's barely concealed disappointment. As soon as the alien delegation departed for their lunar base, the president collapsed into her chair in the Oval Office, exhaustion etched across her features. That was the most difficult negotiation of my life, she confessed to her advisors. I could literally feel his arguments trying to rewrite my thoughts, like a voice whispering that resistance was foolish, ungrateful. Dr. Kazuo Nakamura, head of Earth's Xenopsychology Division, nodded grimly. We detected subtle neurological interference patterns throughout the meeting, some form of advanced persuasion technology embedded in their translation fields, remarkably sophisticated. The president gestured toward the window, where the conclave flagship could be seen as a bright point of light near the moon. And yet they present themselves as benevolent guides, offering us the stars with no strings attached. Admiral Santos placed a tablet on the president's desk, displaying security footage from various research facilities around the world. Teams of scientists worked feverishly on the sample technologies provided by the conclave. We've confirmed their gifts are genuine and functional, the admiral reported. The medical nanites have already saved thousands of lives in our trials. The energy production systems work exactly as promised. But there are design elements we don't understand, continued Dr. Eliza Montgomery, Earth's chief xenotechnologist. She highlighted specific components in the schematics. These structures serve no obvious functional purpose. They appear to be monitoring systems, possibly designed to limit how we can modify or improve upon their technology. President Chen studied the analysis, her expression hardening. So the gifts come with invisible leashes. What about the governance requirements? United Nations Secretary Wei slid forward a document with key passages highlighted. The integration protocols include what they call developmental guidelines, species-appropriate technology release schedules, restricted research domains, mandatory consultations before any major societal changes. Reading between the lines, we'd be surrendering our right to autonomous development. Outside the White House, crowds had gathered, some carrying signs welcoming the aliens, others protesting their presence. News networks worldwide debated the implications of joining a galactic civilization. Religious leaders issued statements interpreting the contact through their various theological lenses. Stock markets fluctuated wildly as investors tried to predict which industries might thrive or collapse in a post-conclave economy. Humanity isn't of one mind about this, the president observed, watching the crowds. But even those most eager to join the conclave would reject these terms if they understood the full implications. In orbit, a team of astronaut engineers examined a conclave shuttle they'd been permitted to study. Chief Engineer Rodriguez discovered an anomaly in the propulsion system, an efficiency restriction deliberately built into the design. They've handicapped their own technology, she reported to Mission Control. This drag should be at least 30% more efficient based on the principles involved. They've intentionally limited its performance. Back on the moon, Supreme Counselor Sortal received this intelligence from conclave monitoring systems embedded in the shuttle. His crystalline surface rippled with patterns that, in his species, represented profound alarm. They detected the restrictions, he informed his advisors. No species at their development stage has ever identified such subtleties before. Humanity's analytical capabilities exceed all projections. We may need to consider alternative integration methods. Dr. Takeuchi sealed the laboratory door and activated the electromagnetic isolation field. The microscopic components from the bird lay spread across her workbench, each piece smaller than a grain of sand. Her colleagues gathered around, faces tense with concentration. The surveillance capability is beyond anything we've developed, she explained, manipulating the holographic display to zoom in on a particular component. These quantum entanglement nodes allow instantaneous data transmission back to the conclave network, bypassing all our detection systems. Dr. Hassan, the team's quantum physicist, whistled softly. No wonder our counterintelligence teams missed them. They don't use any known communication spectrum. What's truly remarkable, continued Takeuchi, is how they adapt. We've found identical devices disguised as insects, plant life, even dust particles. Each mimics local biology perfectly until physically disturbed. Across the globe, similar discoveries were being made. Conclave observation devices had infiltrated government buildings, research facilities, schools, and homes. The surveillance network was comprehensive, designed to build a complete psychological and sociological profile of humanity. Meanwhile, at Conclave Anthropological Command, Chief Analyst Ziv Noor was growing increasingly frustrated. The observation data revealed patterns that defied established xenosociological models. The humans simultaneously prepare for conflict while genuinely pursuing peaceful coexistence, she reported to the Oversight Committee. Their military analyzes our weaknesses even as their diplomats propose sincere cultural exchange programs. All species exhibit self-protective behaviors, countered senior observer Traz. This is simply primitive survival instinct. Ziv Noor projected a sequence showing an international crisis unfolding, an accidental radiation leak from a conclave shuttle near Mumbai. Conclave models had predicted mass panic, possibly violent demonstrations against alien presence. Instead, the footage showed something unexpected. Local authorities calmly evacuating the area while research teams converged to study the alien radiation. Within days, they had not only neutralized the contamination, but had adapted the containment techniques to address long-standing nuclear waste issues. They turned a potential disaster into a technological opportunity, Ziv Noor explained. And this pattern repeats consistently. Pressure does not inhibit their development, it accelerates it. The committee fell silent, processing the implications. For millennia, the conclave had relied on predictable responses from newly contacted species. Initial awe and gratitude, followed by dependency, culminating in voluntary integration. Human reactions followed none of these patterns. Junior observer Clara spoke up unexpectedly. Perhaps we should consider that our traditional approach is fundamentally unsuited to this species. Senior observer Traz appendages stiffened in disapproval. The protocols have never failed in 50,000 years. The flaw is in our implementation, not the method. On Earth, the Global Defense Council reviewed their findings about the conclave's surveillance. General Rivera's presentation was blunt. They're studying us like lab specimens, searching for weaknesses, standard procedure before conquest, or forced integration. Not necessarily, countered Ambassador Okafor. This could be their standard protocol for all new species contact. We shouldn't assume malicious intent. Dr. Takeuchi interjected. What concerns me isn't the surveillance itself, but what they'll do with the information. Our psychology, our social structures. They're fundamentally different from anything in their federation. They classify these differences as unpredictable threat factors. Unknown to either humans or conclave leadership, deep in the data analysis centers of Sorillia Prime, an illegal subroutine had begun running in the primary prediction matrix. Clara had quietly programmed it to explore an unthinkable question. What if the conclave's 50,000-year approach to species integration was fundamentally flawed? What if humanity's resistance wasn't a problem to overcome, but an opportunity to embrace? Dr. Takeuchi studied Clara across her kitchen table, noting the subtle imperfections in the alien's human disguise, the too regular blinking pattern, the unnatural stillness between movements. Morning light was beginning to filter through the blinds after a night of intense information exchange. Why risk your life to warn us? Takeuchi asked, pushing aside the tablet containing conclave defense schematics. Your people could execute you for this betrayal. Clara's artificial features attempted a smile, the expression not quite reaching her eyes. The conclave has existed for 50 millennia by adapting, absorbing new species and their innovations. But in recent 1,000 years, true innovation has slowed dramatically. We maintain technological superiority through carefully managed distribution, not genuine advancement. The alien's fingers traced patterns on the tabletop, movements too precise to be human. Then we discovered Earth. Your species does in decades what takes others centuries. The preservers see this as a threat to stability. I see it as salvation from stagnation. Takeuchi's phone buzzed with a priority alert. The NASA test flight had exceeded all projections, achieving stable faster-than-light travel on its first attempt. Clara viewed the incoming data with visible shock. Impossible, she whispered. Your engineers had access to conclave drive principles for less than 6 months. The integration schedule predicted basic FTL capability no sooner than 30 years after full membership. The alien stood abruptly, moving to the window to scan the sky. High Admiral Venzar will use this as proof that humanity cannot be safely integrated. The Preserver faction will push for containment protocols. Containment. Takeuchi asked, tension evident in her voice. Quarantine of your solar system. Suppression of advanced research. In extreme cases, targeted elimination of key innovators. Kalera's artificial eyes met Takeuchi's. You must understand, nothing like humanity has been encountered in recorded galactic history. Your neural architecture, your social dynamics, your rate of adaptation, all unprecedented. At NASA's Quantum Propulsion Laboratory, celebrations had erupted as the test vehicle transmitted data from beyond Jupiter's orbit. Dr. Marcus Chen, lead engineer on the project, was reviewing the telemetry when his assistant burst into the lab. "Sir, you need to see this," she said, switching the main display to a space telescope feed. The image showed dozens of massive vessels materializing at the solar system's edge, their energy signatures far exceeding anything humanity had encountered before. Conclave reinforcements, Chen murmured, recognizing the distinctive configurations from shared technical data. A lot of them. In orbit, aboard the International Space Station's diplomatic annex, Ambassador Rodriguez received an unexpected visitor. Supreme Counselor Sortal's holographic form materialized in the conference room, his crystalline surface pulsing with complex patterns. "Your species continues to surprise us, Ambassador," the alien leader began. "The recent propulsion test demonstrates capabilities that raise concerns among certain conclave factions." Rodriguez maintained diplomatic composure despite the unannounced intrusion. "Scientific achievement is central to human identity, Counselor. We shared our intentions regarding propulsion research during our initial exchanges." "Indeed. However, the rate of progress exceeds all projected models." Sortal's form shifted, displaying what appeared to be star charts. "The Conclave Council will convene an emergency session regarding Earth's status. I recommend your leaders prepare a comprehensive integration proposal that addresses concerns about unregulated human expansion." The implicit threat hung in the air between them. As the hologram faded, Rodriguez contacted Earth immediately. "Madam President, the situation has escalated. The Conclave is preparing to force our hand." Back in Takeuchi's apartment, Kalera was gathering the courage to share one final terrible truth about the Conclave, one that would change humanity's understanding of galactic history forever. Commander Rodriguez stood motionless before the global broadcast array, acutely aware that her next actions might determine humanity's cosmic fate. Technicians made final adjustments to the transmission equipment, designed to pierce the Conclave's communication filters and reach every member species directly. "Madam Commander, we're ready," the communications director reported. "This signal will reach every Conclave world simultaneously. Once we broadcast, there's no taking it back." Rodriguez took a deep breath, straightening her uniform. The referendum was clear. Humanity has spoken with one voice. We reject ultimatums, no matter how elegantly phrased. In orbit, Conclave sensors detected the unusual power buildup in Earth's communication systems. Fleet Admiral Vortan, commander of the blockade force, received urgent alerts from his technical staff. "The humans are preparing a non-standard transmission," his communications officer reported. "Configuration suggests wide-spectrum broadcast to all Conclave frequencies." "Impossible," Vortan dismissed. "They lack the technical specifications for our secure channels." The officer's appendages trembled slightly. "Sir, analysis indicates they've reverse-engineered our communication protocols from the limited exposure during diplomatic exchanges. They've created a bypass for our information filters." Vortan's exoskeletal face remained expressionless, but his voice carried unmistakable alarm. "Jam their transmitters. Now." Too late. Across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds spanning dozens of biospheres, the unexpected transmission cut through carefully managed information streams. In communal gathering halls, private dwellings, educational institutions, and government centers, Commander Rodriguez's face appeared before billions of alien beings. "Citizens of the Galactic Conclave," she began, her voice automatically translated by adapted conclave linguistics protocols. "I address you directly, not as an enemy, but as a potential friend seeking mutual understanding." On the conclave capital world, Supreme Exortal watched with stunned disbelief as the human broadcast infiltrated even the High Council's private chambers. "Terminate this immediately," he ordered, but his technical advisors could only gesture helplessly. "The humans have implemented quantum-entangled communication principles we shared during cultural exchanges," one explained. "Our standard countermeasures are ineffective." On screens across the galaxy, Commander Rodriguez continued, "The Conclave has presented Earth with an ultimatum: integration under restrictive terms or isolation. Before you judge our rejection as primitive stubbornness, we ask you to consider a question. When was the last time your own civilization was permitted to make a fundamental choice about its development path?" She displayed a detailed analysis of conclave governance structures, highlighting intervention protocols, development quotas, and research restrictions that many ordinary citizens had never seen fully documented. "We believe true wisdom includes respecting the unique evolutionary journey of each species," Rodriguez continued. "Humanity seeks collaboration where diverse civilizations contribute as equals, each offering their distinct perspective." On dozens of worlds, the broadcast triggered unprecedented conversations. On Parthala, university students began questioning why their innovative atmospheric reclamation project had been denied resources. In Zevin mathematical institutes, researchers privately discussed theorems deemed prematurely advanced by conclave review boards. Back on Earth, President Chen received urgent updates from monitoring stations. "The conclave fleet is advancing, Madam President. They're moving to tactical positions." Chen's expression remained resolute. "Have our defense systems ready, but take no aggressive action. If they attack after our peaceful broadcast, they'll only prove our point to their member worlds." In the High Council chamber, arguments erupted between factions. "This constitutes information warfare," High Admiral Venzar thundered. "We must enact immediate containment protocols." Across the chamber, an unexpected voice cut through the chaos. Clara, her position as junior analyst now abandoned, stood before the assembled leaders. "Or perhaps," she suggested quietly, "we should ask ourselves why we fear humans speaking truth to our citizens." Ambassador Yamamoto's diplomatic shuttle docked with the Parthalan orbital habitat, a structure of living crystal and engineered biology that pulsed with subtle bioluminescence. She had visited 7 worlds in 14 days, each meeting more productive than the last. Governor Thelva greeted her with the traditional 6-armed embrace of his species. "Your arrival has caused quite a stir, Ambassador. The Conclave Oversight Committee strongly advised against this meeting." "Yet here we are," Yamamoto replied with a diplomatic smile. "I appreciate your courage, Governor." They moved through curved corridors, filled with floating gardens, to a secure conference chamber. Once inside, Thelva's formal demeanor shifted to urgent intensity. "You must understand our position," he explained, gesturing to a holographic display of his homeworld. "For 3 centuries, we have petitioned the Conclave for permission to implement our atmospheric renewal project. The technology would transform our toxic equatorial regions into habitable land, relieving population pressures and preventing resource conflicts." "And their response?" Yamamoto asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Always the same. Our proposal exceeds permitted development trajectories for species at our integration level. We require another century of cultural stabilization before such planetary engineering would be authorized." Similar conversations unfolded across dozens of worlds as Earth's diplomatic corps engaged directly with younger conclave members. The Zivan mathematicians shared suppressed cosmological theories that contradicted conclave standard models. Dorith engineers revealed innovative propulsion concepts repeatedly rejected by assessment committees for being prematurely advanced. In each meeting, Ambassador Yamamoto offered the same proposal: Perhaps we could collaborate outside traditional conclave frameworks. Earth seeks genuine partners, not subjects or rulers. Meanwhile, on Earth, defensive preparations accelerated. The massive shipyards concealed within Jupiter's storms had completed the first vessels incorporating enhanced conclave designs. Admiral Santos stood on the observation deck of the fleet flagship, watching as engineering teams installed the reverse-engineered shield generators. "Will they be ready in time?" asked General Rivera, studying tactical projections. "They'll have to be," Santos replied grimly. "The conclave blockade force has doubled in size since our broadcast. Intelligence suggests High Admiral Ven Czar is pushing for authorization to implement containment protocols." What neither human nor conclave leadership fully appreciated was the unprecedented communication revolution occurring throughout galactic society. Calera's reform movement had established quantum-entangled channels beyond conclave monitoring, creating the first truly independent galactic information network. In the Great Forum on Cerelia Prime, the traditional center of conclave governance, unprecedented scenes unfolded. The Lorian delegate, his crystalline form pulsing with emotional patterns, interrupted High Council proceedings with a formal inquiry. "My delegation requests clarification on medical research restrictions," he announced to the stunned assembly. "Our physicians have developed treatments for neurological degradation that affect 15 member species, yet these advances have been classified as integration disruptive for 3 centuries. Before the Council could respond, delegates from 7 other species rose in support, each presenting similar cases of suppressed innovation. The carefully choreographed harmony of conclave proceedings dissolved into passionate debate. Supreme Exortal attempted to restore order. These matters must be addressed through established review protocols. "The protocols themselves are the issue," countered Calera, now formally representing the growing Reform Coalition. "For millennia, we have accepted that controlled development ensures stability. What if this assumption is fundamentally flawed?" As the conclave fractured from within, humanity extended its most audacious invitation yet, a new interstellar alliance founded on principles of full sovereignty and unrestricted scientific collaboration. The response exceeded all projections as representatives from dozens of species, particularly younger members of the conclave, expressed immediate interest. The galaxy was awakening, and Earth was holding the door open. Ilara Ben-Chian carefully transferred the ancient data crystals into her specialized reader, painfully aware that discovery would mean immediate execution, not just for her and Kvex, but potentially for everyone involved in the reform movement. The subterranean chamber beneath Cerelia Prime hummed with forgotten technology, systems that had remained operational for 30 millennia. "My ancestors called this the memory of truth," Kvex whispered, his maintenance worker uniform incongruous among the elegant architecture. "For generations, we passed down rumors of its existence through encoded stories and children's rhymes. I never truly believed until your broadcast mentioned developmental restrictions that matched our legends." The holographic display activated, revealing records so ancient they predated the formal establishment of the conclave. Ben-Chian gasped as the first images materialized, detailed genetic maps of dozens of intelligent species, each annotated with projected evolutionary paths and intervention protocols. "They engineered us," she breathed, recognizing the unmistakable patterns of deliberate genetic manipulation. "Not just cultural influence or technological guidance. They literally shaped your evolutionary development." Kvex's bioluminescent patterns flickered with distress. For what purpose? The answer revealed itself as they accessed deeper archive levels. The founders, beings who now existed as energy patterns beyond conventional spacetime, had created the conclave as an elaborate harvesting mechanism. Each member species was carefully guided along predetermined evolutionary paths, their innovations collected and their potential controlled to ensure they would never threaten founder dominance. The integration protocols, Ben-Chian realized, scanning through administrative directives. They're not about stability or preventing conflict between species. They're designed to limit cognitive development in precisely calibrated ways. Most disturbing was the comprehensive catalog of evolutionary intervention projects spanning millions of years, asteroid impacts precisely calculated to reset promising species, climate modifications to guide evolutionary pressures, and subtle genetic alterations introduced through engineered viruses. The founders had seeded and shaped life across the galaxy according to their grand design. Wait, Ben Chien paused, searching the database. Earth isn't here. There's no record of human evolutionary manipulation. HFY studied the star charts with growing excitement. Your solar system was in a sector designated for long-term observation only. According to these records, a scheduled intervention operation was planned. But he traced the ancient administrative notation. The operation was canceled when the responsible monitoring team was diverted to address an unexpected development in the Cygnus sector. We evolved naturally, Ben Chien whispered, the implications staggering. While every other known intelligent species was subtly guided toward compliant cognitive structures, humans developed without interference. On the other side of the galaxy, Calera faced the Reform Coalition representatives, gathered in a secure facility on neutral territory. The information from Cerelia Prime must be verified independently, she cautioned. If confirmed, it fundamentally changes our understanding of galactic history and our own identities. The representatives, 17 species from across conclave space, received the preliminary data with reactions ranging from stunned silence to outrage. The Zyvan mathematician, her crystalline form pulsing with agitation, spoke first. This explains why certain cognitive frameworks were always discouraged. Our mathematical models challenging established dimensional theories were rejected because they approached founder-level understanding. The Doroth engineer added, our drive innovations were suppressed not because they were dangerous, but because they would have granted us freedom to expand beyond controlled regions. Meanwhile, Earth's global communication networks received an unprecedented message, a formal invitation to join the newly formed Alliance of Sovereign Stars, bearing the signatures of representatives from 23 formerly conclave species. The message concluded with words that would reshape galactic society. Humanity evolved free of external control. Your minds represent the only truly independent intelligence in known space. Will you help us reclaim our stolen potential? As the invitation circulated among Earth's leadership, HFY made a final discovery in the ancient archives. The true reason for the founders' careful species management program, and why humanity's natural evolution represented their greatest fear. Supreme Exortal gazed at the treaty document floating before him, its quantum-encrypted text glimmering with verification markers from 17 different species. The surrender terms were generous, far more generous than the Conclave had ever offered to opponents in its 50-millennium history. You could have demanded our destruction, he observed quietly as Secretary General Okafor stood nearby. The Alliance fleets outnumber ours now. Our remaining loyalist worlds are isolated. Destruction was never our goal, Okafor replied, her dark eyes reflecting the starlight from the observation dome. Liberation was. 8 years had transformed the galaxy more profoundly than the previous 30,000. The revelation of the Founders' manipulation had shattered the Conclave's authority, but it was humanity's response that truly altered the cosmic order. Instead of righteous vengeance or triumphant dominance, Earth had offered partnership to both rebel and loyalist worlds alike. I still don't understand, Sortal admitted. Your species was the only one truly free. You could have ruled as the Founders once did. Why create an alliance of equals instead? Because we recognize something the Founders never did, Okafor explained. Diversity of thought and experience is the greatest evolutionary advantage in the universe. No single species, no matter how advanced, can match the creative potential of many different minds working together without hierarchy. As if to illustrate her point, the main display activated, showing real-time updates from across Alliance space. On the former conclave medical world of Zenaris, a breakthrough treatment combining Nilori aquatic biochemistry with Zivan quantum theory and human neurological research had just cured a condition afflicting billions across multiple species. The research team, composed of scientists who would never have been permitted to collaborate under conclave protocols, celebrated their success. In another sector, Partholon environmental specialists worked alongside Dorith engineers and human climate scientists to transform a previously uninhabitable moon into a thriving ecosystem. Their combined approach had reduced the terra conversion timeline from centuries to mere decades. The innovations emerging weekly. Thortal's voice trailed off as he absorbed the implications. We truly did hamper our own potential, didn't we? A priority communication interrupted them. The final report from the joint research team investigating the Founders' archives. Dr. Ben Chian's face appeared, her expression solemn. Madam Secretary, Supreme Counselor, we've confirmed the ultimate purpose of the Founders' domestication program. They feared that naturally evolved intelligence would eventually surpass their own. Their mathematical models predicted that unmanipulated minds would develop cognitive frameworks capable of perceiving and manipulating aspects of reality beyond the Founders' comprehension. She continued, the genetic and developmental restrictions imposed on all conclave species were specifically designed to prevent certain neural pathways from forming, pathways that humans developed naturally during your evolution. What pathways? Okafor asked. Those enabling intuitive quantum understanding and multidimensional perception, Ben Chian explained. The human brain contains structures that allow for conceptual leaps and pattern recognition across seemingly disconnected fields, abilities the Founders engineered out of every other species because these cognitive traits were precursors to what they called the transcendence threshold. Thortal's crystalline surface rippled with complex emotions as the truth finally crystallized. The Founders feared being surpassed. Everything. The conclave, the integration protocols, the developmental restrictions. It was all to prevent any species from evolving beyond their level of consciousness. And now, Okafor prompted gently. The former Supreme's form settled into patterns of calm acceptance. Now we discover what naturally evolved consciousness can achieve when freed from artificial constraints. He placed his appendage on the treaty, formally authorizing the surrender. Perhaps that is what truly terrified us about humanity all along. Not what you might destroy, but what you might help us become. As the treaty protocols completed, new communication channels activated across former conclave space, connecting billions of minds without the filtering and control mechanisms that had limited galactic discourse for millennia. The Liberation Symphony had only just begun its opening movement.